Listen, I know the title sounds like I'm some cold-hearted monster, but stick with me. Because this is 8 weeks of calculated, professional exploitation that ended with me hitting the nuclear button, and honestly, the silence in my clinic now is the sweetest revenge of all. My name is Alara Thorne. I'm 32, and I own the DermaPet Clinic, a specialized veterinary dermatology practice in an upscale suburb of Seattle, Washington, which means high overhead, expensive lasers, niche clientele, and a very thin margin for error. I busted my absolute butt for a decade to get here and achieve that professional independence. But my sister, Blair, who's 28 and a luxury travel/lifestyle influencer, along with my parents, Eleanor and Wallace, retired real estate agents who value image over integrity, have always seen my DVM degree not as a qualification, but as a perpetual zero-cost service plan for every pet they or their friends might ever acquire. And they've always treated me less like a person and more like an on-call utility they were entitled to abuse. I was finishing up a complex allergy panel for a very nervous Shih Tzu one Tuesday morning, the kind of quiet, precise work I love, focusing on the science of medicine, when the front door to the DermaPet clinic practically exploded open. No gentle chime, just the violent rattle of glass against the frame, and I knew instantly that the quiet focus of my day was over. Ilara, back here. My clinic manager, Reese, a pragmatic former military medic in his 40s who keeps me sane and respects my boundaries, called out from reception, his voice tight with warning, and I peeled off my gloves, heart sinking into my stomach because I recognized the sound of my family making a theatrical entrance. Blair burst into the treatment area first, followed by Mom and Dad, all three wearing matching crisp white linen outfits and oversized sunglasses pushed up onto their heads, looking like they were modeling for a European yacht commercial, completely oblivious to the fact they were invading a sterile environment. Blair wasn't carrying a cheap plastic carrier. She was carrying a custom, monogrammed Louis Vuitton duffel bag that definitely held Sterling, her prized, purebred Bengal cat, the high-value prop responsible for 90% of her social media engagement. Dad was struggling with a massive, ornate wooden birdcage housing two enormous, screaming blue and gold macaws. The noise alone was enough to make a paying client turn and run. And Mom was wrestling a tiny, shaking standard poodle named Duchess on a rhinestone leash. The dog looked absolutely miserable and unsteady on her feet. "Thank God you're here, Alara," Blair chirped, dropping the expensive bag right next to my autoclave, not even noticing the hazard. "We need your help. Emergency." My mind raced through possible catastrophes. Did Sterling swallow a diamond? Did the macaws eat a toxic fern? What happened? "Put the animals down gently, please," I managed, fighting to keep my professional voice calm. "What is the emergency?" Mom chimed in, already heading towards the back exit like she was escaping a fire drill she'd started. "We're going, right now. 8 weeks, cross-country road trip, then the Greek Isles. Doctor says I need to de-stress, so we're doing it. The grand tour." Blair beamed at me as if she was announcing a lottery win she intended to split with absolutely no one. "And the animals?" I asked, looking at the four creatures, two of whom required incredibly specialized and difficult care, and the three adults marching toward freedom. "That's where you come in, sis," Blair said, airily tossing her perfect blonde hair. "You're a vet. You have the space. You need to watch them." I felt the blood drain from my face as the full, selfish audacity of their plan hit me. "Blair, I run a specialized clinic. I can't just shut down my practice and turn it into a zoo. Duchess is an elderly diabetic requiring twice-daily insulin injections and precise monitoring. Sterling needs specific environmental controls, and the macaws require special feeding protocols, a specific humidity level, and attention every hour. I need medical records, insulin, food instructions, everything," I sputtered, trying to maintain some semblance of control, but they were already halfway out the door. Dad paused at the exit, his face a practiced mask of wounded confusion, the same expression he wore when I refused to sell my student loan bonds to bail out his short-lived boat investment. Ilara, don't be dramatic. It's just a few pets. You're a thorn, and thorns help family. It's not a big deal. You're overcomplicating things, like always. Mom didn't even stop walking. We didn't have time to pack their food, but you know what they eat, right? Just use the expensive specialty stuff you have here. And Duchess has been a little lethargic lately, but she's old, so... Blair finished, giving a careless shrug as she adjusted her sunglasses. Before I could formulate a single cohesive sentence, the three of them were gone. 60 seconds, maybe less, from their grand entrance to their smooth, coordinated escape. The clinic door slammed shut, leaving me standing in a specialized veterinary facility that had just been converted, without my consent, into a high-needs, unlicensed, and chaotic boarding kennel. 4 abandoned animals stared at me. The exotic bird squawking deafeningly, Sterling peering haughtily from his designer bag, and Duchess trembling pitifully by the drain, clearly struggling to breathe. Reese hurried back, his eyes wide with disbelief. Dr. Thorne, Mrs. Albright is here for her laser therapy. She says you can hear... screaming parrots? Heat crawled up my neck. I felt a professional humiliation deeper than anything I'd ever experienced, realizing my specialized, high-end, high-cost clinic now looked and sounded like a chaotic, low-budget pet shop, and the macaws alone sounded like a chain-link fence being dried across the floor. I'm so sorry, Reese. My family just staged an ambush. I need you to apologize profusely to Mrs. Albright and find an appointment for her later this week. Offer a discount. I need to triage Duchess and get the birds into the isolation ward immediately. Then call my lawyer. The memory surfaced of 5 years of this relentless drain. Mom expecting me to diagnose her friend's cat over text message, Dad calling me at 3 a.m. because Duchess had eaten a decorative cupcake, and Blair using my personal specialized vet sister, Dr. Ilara Thorne, DVM, in every single post about Sterling to drive up her engagement. I pulled out my phone, and there was a text from Blair. A selfie from the highway, all 3 smiling. Thanks, sis. You're the best. Gonna have so much content. My hands trembled, not with anxiety, but with a cold, solid rage that had finally been given a target. This wasn't helping family. This was a professional assault, a hostile invasion of my livelihood. I documented the scene meticulously, took photos of the animals, the empty duffel bag, the ornate bird cage, and the trembling poodle. Then, I opened my accounting software and created a new invoice, pricing everything at the specialized emergency rates they demanded. Emergency exotic boarding, macaws, at $120 per day, high-needs geriatric diabetic boarding, Duchess, at $95 per day plus insulin costs, and luxury feline care, Sterling, at $75 per day, for the full 8 weeks. Total, $17,440. I attached it to an email titled, Immediate Payment Required, Care of Exotic and High Needs Pets, and sent it to all of them. Send. My phone remained silent. Not a peep, not a denial, not a thanks, not an acknowledgement. Just a cold, calculated silence that spoke volumes. She won't actually do anything. She's family. She'll absorb the cost. She always does. I woke up the next morning to the screeching macaws, and this was 4 weeks in. The constant noise, the chaos disrupting the quiet professionalism of the clinic, and 5 client cancellations that week alone. Sorry, Dr. Thorne, the noise level is just too much for Muffin's anxiety. Found a quieter place. That's thousands in lost revenue this month alone. Reese tried to soundproof the macaws, but the Dermapet clinic was not built for a miniature jungle. I checked my email. The invoice was still unread. My text asking for their itinerary, read receipt, then silence. Today marked 4 weeks exactly, the end of their original planned trip. I called Blair and Mom. Both went straight to voicemail. My fingers typed out a text to Blair. You were supposed to be back today. Where are you? The financial and professional stress on the clinic is untenable. I watched the status change from delivered to read, and shortly after, my phone buzzed with a message from Blair. I snatched it up, my heart hammering. The message loaded with a photo, Mom, Dad, and Blair, perfectly suntanned, grinning in front of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. We are in Italy. So much fun we decided to add 4 more weeks. Greek Isles next. Watch them for us. Love you. My hands slipped from my hand and clattered onto the imaging equipment table, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. 4 more weeks. 8 weeks total. 8 weeks of canceled appointments, managing life-threatening diabetes and high-maintenance exotic birds, and being treated like a doormat. Reese walked in, his face drawn. Dr. Thorne, Mrs. Albright's canceling permanently. She mentioned the macaws. I nodded. That was nearly $8,000 in lost revenue, plus the $17,440 invoice they were still ignoring. I closed my office alone that night. The noise finally settled, the numbers staring back at me in deep, unforgiving red. On my desk was my graduation photo, the day I became Dr. Ilara Thorne, DVM. I pulled up my text history. 5 years of unreciprocated demands, and the anger finally cooled into something hard and sharp. I was done being their resource. I was done being their sister. I was their professional service provider, and they were in massive breach of contract. That night, the cold clarity of my rage had finally replaced the suffocating fog of guilt. I was no longer waiting for their acknowledgement or permission. I was acting as Dr. Ilara Thorne, DVM, business owner, and my first act was to establish the hard, unshakable boundaries of the law. The next morning, Dr. Anya Sharma, a brilliant colleague who specialized in animal law, stopped by to borrow specialized culture media and paused at the doorway of the isolation ward where the macaws were currently hitting a high C, while Duchess shivered and Sterling hissed from his carrier. Ilara, Anya began, her expression hardening instantly. This is not right. This is beyond taking advantage. This is professional negligence on their part, and it's compromising your practice. I rubbed my temples, the exhaustion weighing on my shoulders like lead weights. What choice do I have, Anya? They're family. They know I won't just leave them in the street. Anya leaned closer, her voice low and serious. Family doesn't treat family like unpaid help, and more importantly, they can't force you into medical malpractice. You should at least know your rights regarding long-term, uncompensated pet care and abandonment. The word abandonment planted itself in my mind like a seed of crystalline ice. That night, after Reese left, and the clinic had quieted to a low hum of machinery and nervous animal breathing, I made the call I had been dreading. Not to Anya, but directly to my mother, Eleanor, who answered on the 4th ring, her voice thick with the faux cheer of a perpetual vacationer. Ilara? We're having the most marvelous time. Your father found this charming little taverna in Mykonos. I interrupted, cutting through her narrative with a voice that was steadier than I felt. Mom, you have to come get them. This is 4 weeks past the deadline. Duchess is a diabetic patient, and the strain on my clinic, both financially and professionally, is unsustainable. I'm running a business. The line went silent for a moment. Then she laughed, the sound brittle and dismissive. Oh, don't be so dramatic, Ilara. They're fine. You're a vet. What's the big deal? Your sister needs this break for her brand. My clinic is not a kennel, and it's certainly not a pet ICU. I've lost clients and revenue. I cannot. We'll talk about this when we get back. I need to go. Your father's waiting for dinner. The line went dead. I stood there, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone, the total dismissal of my professional boundaries burning me down to the bone. They knew I wouldn't fight back, and they knew I would keep feeding the macaws and administering Duchess's routine insulin, operating under the assumption that I would always fold. But that person was gone. The woman standing in the silent clinic was Dr. Ilara Thorne, DVM, a professional who understood that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is enforce the law. I swiped away a notification from Blair, another flood of perfect vacation photos that had transformed from irritating to infuriating. 5 weeks into this nightmare, and their digital postcards had become weaponized taunts. My appointment book was razor thin. Clients were complaining, and the macaws were still providing a disruptive soundtrack to my professional life. Dr. Thornton? Reese appeared in my office doorway, concern etched across his face. Mr. Davies called to reschedule the allergy injections, 4th cancellation this week. I closed my laptop, rubbing my temples. Their silence was calculated. They were calling my bluff, waiting for me to cave, assuming I'd accept this imposition with the same resigned smile I'd worn my entire life. I gathered the evening medication trays, preparing for final rounds. The macaws ate their specialized fruit mix, and Sterling accepted his pâté with feline disdain, but Duchess, the little white poodle, hadn't touched her food for 2 days, and her water dish remained full, something alarming in a diabetic patient. "Come on, Duchess," I coaxed, kneeling beside her. Her amber eyes looked dull, unfocused, and when I stroked her flank, her fur felt damp despite my best efforts. Blair had always joked about Duchess being such a lazy, sleepy dog, but now, as I examined her more carefully, professional alarm bells were shrieking. Her gums looked pale, her breathing was vapid and shallow, and her abdomen was rigid. I checked her chart, no actual medical history because Blair never provided it, only my own triage notes. I grabbed my phone, my fingers trembling as I punched in the number for the specialty veterinary hospital across town. Duchess had spiraled into severe diabetic ketoacidosis, a life-threatening complication of uncontrolled diabetes. And it wasn't something that happened overnight. This was the culmination of weeks of neglect, stress, and missed doses before they had even dumped her on me. 20 minutes later, I was following the headlights of the transport vehicle through the empty streets, Duchess whimpering softly in the back seat, her large body trembling against me. The emergency hospital blazed with harsh fluorescent light, and the attending vet confirmed my fear. Advanced DKA, severely dehydrated, blood glucose levels off the charts, ketones spiking dangerously. "How long has she been showing symptoms?" the specialist asked, drawing blood from Duchess's foreleg. "I don't know," I said, the words tasting like ash. Her owner dropped her with me 5 weeks ago, said she was just lazy. The vet's expression shifted instantly from professional concern to grim acknowledgement. "Family?" I just nodded. 3 hours of aggressive fluid therapy, insulin drips, and electrolytes later, the vet handed me the estimate, $4,900, just to stabilize her, not including the specialized continuing care she would need. I pulled out my emergency credit card. "Start treatment right away. She has to make it." Back in my car at 3 a.m., the physical exhaustion was overshadowed by the white-hot core of betrayal. I dialed Blair's number, straight to voicemail. I texted her, "Blair, it's Ilara. Duchess collapsed. She's at the emergency hospital with life-threatening DKA. I just paid $4,900 to save her life. You need to call me back immediately. This is not a joke. You ignored her illness." The message showed as delivered, then read almost immediately, and then nothing. No typing bubble, no callback, just silence. She saw the message, read the words life-threatening DKA and $4,900, and chose to ignore it. By morning, I had received no response from anyone in my family. I called Anya Sharma, the animal law expert. "Anya, they've ignored all communication and the dog almost died. I had to pay $4,900 for emergency care." The word neglect, which Anya used next, struck me like a physical blow. "Ilara, this isn't an inconvenience. This is criminal neglect of a dependent animal. You need to document everything, and I mean everything." I spent the day gathering screenshots of the original demands, the 8-week extension, the emergency hospital invoice, and the read receipts on my desperate messages about Duchess's collapse. Then, armed with the law, I opened my computer and searched Washington State Animal Abandonment Laws. The results loaded instantly. RCW 16.52.11, Animal Abandonment. The law required a 14-day formal notice after willful abandonment notification, after which legal ownership transfers. I created a 1-inch stack of printed, time-stamped evidence. I called Anya back. "Draft the letter. I want it sent certified mail, return receipt requested, to my parents' home address today. The line had been drawn, not by anger, but by law. I stood at the post office counter holding a thick envelope addressed to my parents' home in Medina, the weight of the certified mail receipt feeling heavier than the entire $4,900 emergency bill that I just paid for Duchess. Inside was the formal abandonment notice, drafted by Anya, outlining the life-threatening DKA emergency, the ignored communications, the ignored $17,000 invoice, and the crucial 14-day deadline before ownership of Sterling, Duchess, and the Macaws legally transferred to me as the holder of the possessory lien under Washington state law. Immediately after sending it, I took photographs of the letter itself, the $4,900 invoice, and the certified receipt, sending all of these to Blair, Eleanor, and Wallace via text and email. Just like every other attempt at communication, I received total silence. The macaws kept squawking, Duchess remained stabilized but fragile at the specialty clinic, and my family remained unreachable on the Greek Isles. Their silence a deliberate counterattack. They were certain I was bluffing, that I loved those animals too much to actually relinquish them, and that I would eventually break and absorb all costs. Day after day, I meticulously documented every expense. The macaws' specialized diet, Duchess's weekly $200 insulin and fluid costs, the clinic revenue lost to their chaos. The certified letter had been marked delivered. Someone, likely the automated mail service for their gated community, had signed for it 3 days prior, and the clock was ticking down to day 14. I confessed to Reese that the urge to call them one last time to give a final warning was almost unbearable, but Reese, ever the pragmatic voice of reason, reminded me, "Dr. Thorne, the letter stated the consequences clearly. They are adults. This is their choice." His words solidified my resolve. Their choice to dump 5 animals, their choice to extend their vacation, their choice to ignore a medical emergency, and now their choice to ignore a legal notice. I contacted Seattle Animal Rescue League, informing the intake manager Liam of the situation. They specialized in high-needs animals and, crucially, had resources for exotic birds. 4 more days passed, marked only by the escalating costs and the silence from abroad. I saw a new Instagram post from Blair, a stunning selfie by the Aegean Sea, captioned, "Best day ever, blessed." Their absolute certainty in my fatal flaw, my nurturing instinct, had become their legal undoing. At 5 p.m. precisely on day 14, I closed the clinic logbook. No calls, no emails, no family members storming the door. The legal deadline had arrived. They had officially, legally, abandoned their pets. My hand didn't shake when I picked up the phone. "Liam, it's Dr. Thorne. I have 4 legal surrenders for you. The paperwork is finalized." Their overconfidence had cost them their prized cat, their beloved poodle, and their exotic status symbols. I was no longer reacting to them. I was acting on my own. Finally, and the subsequent silence in the clinic felt like pure, unadulterated freedom. The following morning, I watched Liam from Seattle Animal Rescue League gently coax Sterling, the aloof Bengal cat, into a secure carrier, followed by the 2 screeching macaws in their massive cage, and finally, the fragile Duchess returning from the specialty hospital. "We've got an excellent senior foster home lined up for Duchess that specializes in canine diabetes," Liam explained, reviewing the stack of transfer documents I provided, which included the certified mail receipt, the 7 weeks of ignored communication, and the crippling $4,900 DKA emergency bill. "You literally saved her life, Dr. Thorne. And the macaws? Those are going to our exotic bird sanctuary. They require professional, ongoing care, not just a cage to look pretty. I nodded, signing the final surrender papers with a hand that was finally steady, the immense weight of professional and familial obligation lifting with each stroke of the pen. For years, I had treated Duchess for free, while Blair used her and Sterling as accessories for her brand. Now they would finally receive the dedicated, responsible care they deserved. Liam loaded the animals into the SARL van, and as the door closed, I felt an unfamiliar, clean sense of emptiness in the clinic. The kind of emptiness you feel after successfully amputating a painful, non-viable limb. The clinic returned to its specialized operations with blessed silence. I slept through the night for the first time in 2 months, and paying clients like Mrs. Albright actually kept their appointments, commenting on how much more peaceful and professional the atmosphere was. 2 weeks passed in this newfound tranquility, and my account ledger started slowly, cautiously, to move out of the red. Then, the front door to the Dermapet clinic chimed, a gentle, normal sound, and Risa's voice crackled over the intercom. "Dr. Thorne, your family's here." I took a deep, centering breath, my body filling not with dread, but with cold, professional purpose. "Send them back, Reese." Blair, Eleanor, and Wallace burst through my office doorway, tanned, rested, and carrying new shopping bags, a stark contrast to their state 2 months prior. "Alara, we're back," Blair chirped, her voice bright with the same entitled expectation as the day they left. "Where are my babies? Sterling must be so happy we're home." My mother glanced around the quiet, empty clinic, frowning. "They must be in the back. They must be desperate to see us." I set down my pen, pushed my chair back, and stood, placing my hands flat on my desk. "They're not here." Blair's perfect smile immediately faltering. "What do you mean not here? Are they at your apartment? We need them back for content creation tonight." "No," I said, my voice low, steady, and utterly devoid of sisterly warmth. "They are no longer your property." My father, Wallace, stepped forward, his face darkening with instant paternal indignation. "Ilara, stop being difficult. We paid for them. Where are the animals?" I didn't reach for a gun or a wrench. I simply reached into my top drawer and removed a single, thick manila envelope, which I slid across the desk to Blair. "This is everything you need to know." Blair snatched it, her face transforming from sun-kissed entitlement to panicked confusion as she pulled out the contents: the certified mail receipt, the $4,900 DKA emergency vet bill, the 8 weeks of ignored texts, and the final business card for Seattle Animal Rescue, Sarl. "What did you do?" she shrieked, the influencer facade shattering instantly. My mother grabbed the papers, her eyes widening as she scanned the legal terms and the emergency costs. "You gave away our pets? Duchess, Sterling, how could you betray your family like this?" "I didn't give them away," I corrected, my voice gaining strength. "I enforced the Washington state abandonment law that you chose to ignore. I sent a certified letter after Duchess collapsed due to your neglect, giving you 14 days to retrieve them, pay the bills, or assume responsibility. You chose silence. Legal ownership was forfeited." "But we were on vacation," Blair wailed, genuine tears of frustration, not remorse, welling in her eyes. "A vacation you extended for 7 weeks without my consent while dumping diabetic, exotic, and high-needs animals in a specialized clinic without food, supplies, or medical records." "Good luck with that," I said, leaning over the desk slightly. "Liam at Sarl knows the entire history of willful neglect, the documentation and the unpaid bills. Sterling and the Macaws have already been placed in specialized foster care, and Duchess was adopted yesterday by a retired vet tech couple who specialize in senior, diabetic canines. She's finally receiving the proper, life-saving DKA management she requires." "DKA? What's wrong with Duchess?" Eleanor's voice was a panicked whisper. "Severe diabetic ketoacidosis," I explained, not softening my tone. That laziness you joked about, it was organ failure. It almost died 5 weeks ago. I paid $4,900 to save her life while Blair was posting pool selfies. I called and texted you repeatedly, and you read the emergency message and ignored it. Blair's face crumpled with actual guilt, a flicker of genuine remorse finally breaking through her entitlement. I didn't think it was that serious. I thought she was just being dramatic. Because you never think, Blair, I finished, the long-held resentment finally escaping. You just expect me to handle it. Alara will fix it. Alara will pay for it. Not anymore. I paused, letting the silence hang heavy. I am no longer the 24/7 on-call, unpaid service provider for people who prioritize an Instagram photo over their pet's life. My clinic is not a free kennel. Wallace swelled up, his face apoplectic. This is how you treat family? After everything we've done for you? Everything you've done? I met his gaze, the fire in my chest colder and clearer than ever. I provided nearly $30,000 in free veterinary care, free boarding, and emergency medical intervention while struggling to pay my own mortgage. You have taken and taken until there was nothing left, then demanded I ruin my business for your convenience. You forfeited your rights to these animals, and you forfeited your right to my free services. The three of them stood frozen, speechless for the first time in their lives. I didn't wait for a response. I turned back to my desk, picked up a client chart, and looked up at them with a detached, professional air. Get out of my clinic. I have paying clients who respect my expertise to attend to. Eleanor recovered first, drawing herself up with wounded dignity. Come on, we'll find a lawyer and sue the rescue center. The door slammed behind them, rattling the glass, but not my composure. I didn't sink into my chair. I remained standing, breathing deeply, feeling the clean, sharp edge of freedom. I had defended my professional boundary, I had enforced the law, and I ensured my patients, the abandoned ones, were safe. They would never respect me as a sister, but they would damn well respect me as Dr. Thorne, DVM. The next morning, I checked Duchess's progress notes via the specialty hospital's portal. She was thriving in her new home, her blood sugar finally stable. Later, my phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. Your sister is very upset. I think you were too hard on them. This is unforgivable. I looked at the message, a faint smile touching my lips. I switched my phone off and slid it into my pocket. Walking out of the clinic that evening, the Seattle air crisp and cold, I drove away from the neon glow of the Derma Pet Clinic, leaving the crushing weight of guilt and obligation behind, finally, completely at peace.